Hello, welcome back to the L1 show. Today we are doing business and security stories to share with your friends.
There was so much business last week. It was crazy.
Yeah, well, it's mostly, as usual, kind of bad news. This one's not too bad.
Well, it collapsed. I mean, economic turmoil and people losing their jobs. There's a lot more people entering the workforce.
We're not at the start of the tab list. That's why I was confused.
Oh,
The start of the tab list is almost always everybody losing their jobs.
I've misclicked.
Yeah.
But it's sort of nuts.
Amazon is taking half of each sale from its merchants. This is not surprising.
That seems like an antitrust thing. That seems like maybe what the European Union is complaining about.
I've had some clients who sell through Amazon and they're like, whenever we can we not promote our Amazon because they take all our money?
Yeah, they we thought about selling like the level 1 KVMs and other stuff like that on Amazon, and we don't make enough money on the KVMs to do that. And even as expensive as they are,
Right.
most of the money goes into making it not suck.
Yeah. Research and development, if you will.
The research and development is just because I'm sort of obsessive about those things. I don't have a choice.
I can't stop myself.
The gray beard is involuntary, but really aren't those the best products?
Oh, Twilio to lay off about 1,500 employees or 17% of its workforce.
Yeah, it's about 10% across the board. It seems to be like a self-fulfilling cycle. It's like all the CEOs are looking around and saying, everybody's laying off 10%. We got to lay off 10%. So,
But sir, these people actually make the product. No, lay them off.
1,500 employees. It's okay. Sounds good. There's a lot of tech companies that are in the same position. I mean,
I do wonder if it's a little bit of like monkey see, monkey do. Everyone gets a little nervous, but
it really is. And it's the same thing with pricing and profits. Because remember, it's like eggs are at record price, but profits are also at a record high. But it's a little bit of sort of a preemptive, if you know that somebody is going to punch you in the face, do you wince? And in business markets, they will wince at the drop of a hat. Because if you wince and nothing actually happens, that's actually a good thing. You come out way more ahead than you would have had, something
if you just
happen.
took a punch to the face, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, speaking of punches to the face,
PC CPU shipments see steepest decline in 30 years.
this may be the worst declines in x86 CPU history.
Not great.
Preemptive wincing, yes, definitely. And also,
Microsoft lays off 150 cloud sales specialists, report.
when line goes down, you don't need salespeople.
Yeah, a lot of the sales teams were getting cut for a lot of these. I think, the next one I think is Microsoft's LinkedIn lays off staff amid hiring slowdown, and the staff they laid off, I think, was like recruiting kind of people.
Yeah. So it's weird though, because sometimes in economic downturn, you see companies looking to cut costs. And that was a big thing that drove cloud expansion in 2007, 2008, 2009, because Amazon compute services and Google compute were often cheaper. And now it's sort of a given that they can be less expensive, but in some scenarios, on-premises server stuff is cheaper, as long as you don't need a super amazing internet connection. So it's weird. But also,
DocuSign to lay off 10% of its workforce, about 700 employees.
now this is interesting because DocuSign, if you look at their quarterlies and their performance and their earnings and stuff, that's sort of the tack that this article takes, which is a little different than the other ones, is the DocuSign's actually, their volume is up and their margins are up. They found more ways to do more automation. And so there's less people doing more work for less money. And so they let a bunch of people go. But it's not even that it's preemptive, it's that it's more automated. So they're not even responding to a punch in the face. They're just saying, hey, we've realized all these gains for automation over the years. Now is the opportunity to lay off those people that we didn't need anyway with no negative side effect. And we can just point to the economy and say, economy.
It's the economy.
So I don't know. It's
not good for workers. We'll say that.
It's bad that we have a system where when there is a legitimate pressure economically, that it also encourages other companies to pile on.
Yeah.
That seems like that would do create undue stress in an already stressed economic situation. If DocuSign didn't feel like they could get rid of those workers before now, that is a worse situation than getting rid of them now, in my opinion. Or they should have gotten rid of them when they didn't need them, not when they had an excuse to.
Right.
Is what I mean. Because it could encourage a more of a collapse type situation. So
Feedback loop.
yeah, and so and then there's also this.
Tesla fired dozens of Gigafactory workers after Tuesday's union announcement.
Oh, you're unionizing, huh? Get out.
Yeah. And it was literally, I think, almost everyone in that group. It was like 20 people, and they were all people involved with starting up a union.
They can't fire us all.
They did. Someone will probably have a nice lawsuit from that.
And
This one, most Londoners would quit before they give up working from home. I understand that. It's nice not having to do a commute.
go on, spill the contents of that imaginary angry resignation email. It'll do you good.
My favorite thing I've ever seen, I don't know if anyone's actually ever done this, but someone said that they got like a condolences card, like sorry for your loss, and they did that as a resignation.
And sorry for loss of me.
Yeah. It was funny.
Oh, this one, it's I don't think this is a good idea.
Okay, well, let's discuss. Heata offers UK residents free hot water in exchange for cooling its servers. I don't know why I tried to do an accent. Sorry.
So what this does is this straps a server to your hot water heater, and it uses your hot water tank for cooling.
Would that be enough cooling?
I mean, the amount of compute that the server has would be variable over time. Surely they've done the math, and surely that they've worked that out. But perhaps I should register a Heata company shutdown countdown.com or something like that, because I can't see this lasting more than a year or two.
This is just looking for investors.
Yeah, well, it sounds like in the UK, a lot of people use natural gas for their hot water heater, and so they'll come and install it, and they basically cut away part of your hot water heater, but they do it in such a way that it doesn't void the tank warranty. And then they strap the server to the inner tank on your hot water heater and use that for cooling. So when you run your hot water heater, it's going to bring in cold water from the outside, but also the giant tank of water acts kind of like a heat sink, and so it'll help keep the server cool. And so by having one server in everybody's house, they're able to distribute their data center or their workload across all of these houses. Of course, if you have a house that runs their hot water heater more, then they'll have a server that has a higher cooling capacity, and so maybe their software can leverage that somehow, or maybe they just assume that it's sort of a fixed, low amount that they'll be able to do this, that, or the other. I think that ultimately, though, this is probably going to rely on the houses. Like, you're going to end up dumping some waste heat into the house that air conditioning or other climate controls may have to deal with. Or maybe this is a part of the UK where it's cold and it'll offset some of the air conditioning stuff. But I wouldn't think so, because if it's in a colder part of the UK that these houses are, then they could just use the outside for cooling, and the costs for cooling really wouldn't be significant. So just the basic physics of this, I can't get the numbers to line up.
Also, like, if you're depending on each individual household, what happens if, like, they don't pay their electric bill? Or, oops, like, they were working on a different part of the house. They were doing a renovation in the bathroom upstairs, and the water leaked through. And
well, it does say that they give you a credit on the electricity that the server uses, and they pay 10% above the market rates. So they pay you for your electricity and reimburse you for your electricity. But I can't imagine you would run a data center this way. This would maybe be useful for bulk compute. Maybe with the gains of cryptocurrency, this would make sense. But with that being what it is, then it's not going to work. I'm glad we closed the door.
yeah, you guys probably can't hear our editors are laughing in the other room. How dare they have fun? Tesla to open U.S. charging network to rivals in $7.5 billion federal program.
Level 1 called it. We said, hey, Tesla's going to see an opportunity to get some federal money. That's why they're being so ornery with their charging network. And sure enough.
Surely, though, there would have reached a point where they couldn't have done that forever without some regulatory agency being like, you can't keep this so only certain people can use it.
Yeah, I love the websites that do the math and say that Tesla can't exist without all of the subsidies that it has, whether they be government subsidies and direct government subsidies or carbon credit subsidies. Engagement challenge, how is that wrong? Because somebody would love to tell us how that's wrong. But in this case, it's the old Elon Musk pattern where he has a tantrum on Twitter and says something about, oh, this is, we're losing money here, blah, blah, blah. This isn't really good. And he really amps it up. And then something like this happens. And it's like, oh, that's why he was doing that. That's why he was stamping his feet. It's because he wanted access to this. He didn't really care. They were going to do it. They were going to open up the charger network one way or the other, because you can always just charge people money. That's fine. But now it gets federal money and to charge people money. It's the best of both worlds. But it's not the best of both worlds.
Bloomberg, Apple delays AR/VR headset launch again and now expects to unveil the device at WWDC.
So they keep delaying it, and I don't know what that means.
I wonder, is it good, or is it just like, oh, this is not up to Apple's standard?
It's probably not fabulous.
Still kind of salty about the whole Apple Pencil situation with the latest iPad. I had to explain that to a friend who was like, I want to get my wife an iPad because she wants to draw on it. And I was like, well, you should get the newest one, but the Pencil is like that weird charging situation.
Yeah, the next newest one will be the reason to upgrade. It's like, oh man, that Pencil situation was just awful. So there'll be a flood of stuff on the market that's the old one.
Yeah, that's what happened the first time when the Apple Pencil 2 came out, because it has a better charging thing, but now it doesn't work. It's like,
that's the Apple MO. They do it. They do that. You can pretty much count on Apple to do one thing, and it's that over and over again. But you know who else you can count on to do that one thing over and over again?
ASML says ex-China employee misappropriated data relating to its critical chip technology. Blech.
But ASML also said that the employee didn't really get any important trade secrets. So this just seems like a headline to be like, yeah, they took something they shouldn't have. Yeah. Remember it's like somebody flees, ex-Tesla employee is trying to leave the country with secrets in it. And it turns out it was not really anything.
They were just going on vacation and they didn't like it, probably.
It was a little more serious than that. But it wasn't fabulous. But this is fabulous.
Google Fiber launches 5 gigabit service for $125 per month.
Well, that's about, gigabit is feeling a little slow. 5 gigabit, that would go a lot farther. So $125 a month for 5 gigabit.
Where all is Google Fiber even launched? Like, it's nowhere near me.
Kansas City, Louisville. Although Louisville's a little weird because AT&T did succeed in
hampering them,
really just kneecapping the bejesus out of them. It's really sort of criminal. Where's Lena Khan when you need her? Louisville. Google. Come on.
She's busy. She's got to take on everybody all the time.
So she's a little late to that party too. That's the shenanigans there happened a while ago. So that's sort of fun. So the whole, China situation and manufacturing, it's created a lot of hardships for companies that are trying to stop manufacturing in that region. Apple is, an early adopter. They sort of saw this coming a year ago. They've been working on getting things up and running for manufacturing and other places like the Philippines. But there's some challenges.
50% rejection rate for iPhone casings produced in India shows scale of Apple's challenge.
The representative from Apple was really quick to tell us that the rejection rate from the Chinese case manufacturing is like almost, but not quite 0%.
Institutional knowledge of years of manufacturing.
And just dealing with how picky they are. It's like, oh.
They know before. It's kind of like we have certain clients where it's like, I know that they're going to nitpick this, so I'm just going to go on and try to preemptively fix it. But knowing probably won't be enough.
You know what's not a nitpick, though?
Ford halts production shipments of F-150 Lightning over possible battery issue. I cannot talk.
It's bad when they halted delivery and manufacture. It's like, battery issue. Oh. There's not really a lot of details, but Reuters is reporting on it. So this one will probably be a news story for several weeks to come. Yeah,
maybe one of those electric car websites. Sometimes we'll get stories. Maybe they'll have details about it soon.
Yeah.
Probably by the time you watch this.
And the cost of energy is going up and down, up and down, up and down. If you're in Texas, I am so sorry about the cost of energy.
Is it really high right now?
Yeah, the energy grid in Texas. There were people we had that minor freeze, and there were people in Texas and in Austin that didn't have power for like 4 days. and it wasn't even.
I thought they fixed the grid after the last freeze in 2021.
We made the grid capitalistic. It's good now. It's not. And here's another headline that says why.
Electric vehicles could match gasoline cars on price this year. I have messed up every title for the last 3 times.
And this is actually talking about the price of the vehicle. But when you dig into it, it's like, wait a minute. The price per mile is not really a lot different here either.
I mean, I would be interested in an electric vehicle, but they are, I mean, even at the prices they're talking about, they're still really high, I think.
Gas vehicles have also gone up in price dramatically.
Yeah.
See also used vehicles. Where
oh my gosh, yeah.
Used vehicles have gone up so much that it doesn't, used vehicles often don't make sense anymore because people are so used to not being able to afford a new vehicle. And you could get, a used vehicle where used is, this vehicle is a year old, but only has 500 miles on it. So it's new. And it would be, $10,000 off or something. And so it's like, yeah, that's the one to buy. Or the one that the dealership used for the loaner vehicle and you buy that one because it's, $10,000 off or whatever. Those days are gone. Sadly.
Yeah, that's very sad. I really would like to get a truck, get rid of one of our old cars, but at the prices they're at now, it's not going to happen.
We and a couple of weeks ago we did a report on New York, and they were New York passed the right to repair legislation, but they managed to pass a version of the right to repair legislation that was terrible. And so Grist has the postmortem on how that could possibly happen.
How big tech rewrote the nation's first cell phone repair law.
So it's like, oh, well,
Sadhorn.mp3.
if letting Louis Rossmann repair your iPhone will somehow result in it murdering your children, then you don't have to share that. And you don't have to demonstrate any kind of plausible reality. It's like, oh, well.
Of that actually happening.
Yeah, we just have to say it. It's like, well, if we let Louis Rossmann repair this cell phone, there's a chance that it could hunt down and kill Sarah Connor. I'm just saying. It's a small chance. But
Maybe
there's a chance.
He'll turn into a mutant when he opens up that cell phone case.
So that's, it's the John Deere argument. And the DOJ, if anybody is paying attention at the DOJ, the stuff that you said for John Deere, just copy paste that.
Yeah.
Send that memo to Tim Cook at Apple because it's the same thing, except perhaps even more egregious. Because I think that if we allow people to change light bulbs and electric sockets where they could totally jam their finger in there and get a shock, then I think that we should allow them to change the batteries in their cell phones.
That's we talked about a few weeks ago. Like, I can just go into a Tractor Supply and buy animal vaccines. I don't know how to administer a vaccine, but I bought one and I read the instructions, did it for Rue. It was a nasal one, but still.
If you go to Ace Hardware and you say, hey, I've got a broken light bulb in a socket, what do I do about that? They say, well, try to turn the light off. And it's like, I don't remember how to turn it off. And it's like, go to your breaker panel and shut your power off. And then take a potato and shove the potato into the socket and unscrew your light bulb. If you are smart enough to do that, you can change a lithium-ion battery.
They could also just design their phones to make that even easier. They could dummy proof. Apple is the king of dummy proofing things, but they can't do it for that.
I'm not asking Apple to dummy proof anything. I'm just saying that if you can change
even as it is now,
a broken light bulb, you can change a lithium-ion battery. Fun times. We actually do have some real hardware news too, which is exciting. But first up,
this is just a slide.
Yeah,
Pangolin.
The Pangolin AMD-powered laptop. Ryan included this one. This wasn't even me. I didn't even do this.
He did this. This is Wendell Bait.
Yeah.
Is that actually an H1 tag? Or is that an image?
This is an image.
Oh. There's no H1 tag.
Yeah, 9 to 5 Linux. We could probably turn.
Oh, there is at the top. I think we scrolled down a little bit. Never mind.
We could. It's now available to order. System 76's all new AMD powered laptop. I've decided that I'm going to get one of these and try it. And part of the reason is the spec list, and part of the reason is because there's a couple aspects of this build that remind me of the old Sony Z505. The Sony Z505 was the pinnacle of laptop design for the way that the battery was, the way that the keyboard was, the way that the screen was. It was a magnesium alloy case here. I'm kind of excited about the design. I'm also kind of excited about the performance of the battery life of the 6800U. Now, we do have some 7000 series AMD laptops coming. I don't normally review laptops, but there's also the AMD Advantage thing, and I've been really curious about that. And also, my laptop is 4 years old, and also I'm going to be doing traveling this year.
Back to traveling.
Some of it is fun for business. It's going to go to Computex, but some of it is
Boring traveling.
Yeah. And so
Not fun. Not going to.
Yeah. Not going to Computex. So first up, the Pangolin, worth a look, 6800U. And I'm also really impressed with the 6800U. So we got the Desk Mini. It's a desktop PC, but they shoved the laptop parts into a desktop computer, and it's nice. It's shockingly nice for portable stuff. And this thing has up to 10 hours of power.
Is it already out?
Yeah, okay. You can order it now. So I'm gonna get one, and we're gonna see how it goes. Fun times. And then also, Intel announced Xeons. Intel's bringing back, they're coming after Threadripper. Intel hasn't had anything to answer for Threadripper on the high-end desktop, and Threadripper prices have shown that, Threadripper Pro. And here come the Xeon W3400 and W2400. Intel launches W3400 and W2400 processors for workstations up to 56 cores, 112 PCIe 5 lanes. So not just one, but two high-end desktop. One, I guess, is kind of an answer to Threadripper Pro. That's the W3400 series. And then there's also the W2400 series. I did a separate video on this. You should check it out. The W2400 series, I think, is more like the mainstream one. And the W3400 is just a ridiculous monster. Like, if you're going to spend $5,000 on a CPU on your workstation, 3400 series, probably. I mean, like, if you're doing, Weta Digital or 3D commercials and just the most unbelievable fire-breathing creative workstation. I think AMD showed the world how hot those could be because they literally could not make Threadripper chips fast enough for people that wanted those 64-core chips. And actually talking to, when we did an AMD event, and there were dudes there from studios that had worked on films you've heard of. And they said
films you've heard of,
and they were incredibly complimentary of this changed our workflow. We had no idea that computers could be this fast. It was insane because we could do all the rendering and stuff in real time, basically.
And not just hit render and then go out for lunch and then.
Yeah, and AMD had that case study on the Terminator movie, the new Terminator movie. They were doing real time stuff with that, and now the Threadripper Pro is like 2 or 3 times faster than it was then. And now here come Intel with their fire-breathing Xeon chips, and at lower price points, much lower price points, and unlocked Xeons, deliberately overclockable, unlocked Xeons for enthusiasts. And we definitely have AMD to thank for that. But also, these look like they're really fast, so that's fun and exciting. Really, really, really gonna check out my video on that. It'll be a lot of fun. And this in a story that will surprise no one.
Adobe will need EU OK to acquire Figma, regulators say.
Yeah. So
to ruin Figma. Let's find their new way to ruin it.
Well, it really impresses me how many people look at the Adobe suite and they say, oh, in order to solve this problem, there's something in the Adobe suite for me. And so they use something, what's the Adobe for the design thing that always is janky to convert to HTML?
Oh,
because it kind of supports CSS.
XD?
Yeah, it's
I don't like XD.
It's XD is good if you're a designer that doesn't know how to web, but it's bad if you understand how to web and you want to use it as a tool for creating things for the web.
It's fine. Like sometimes if you're just like, I need to figure out exactly what styles they used on this particular button, so I don't have to sit here and figure out is it 1 pixel apart or whatever. But other than that, like, I don't know. It's not that useful, I don't think. But
yeah. And a lot of people that do something with XD, they'll put a lot of time into their design and expect to be able to, in a high fidelity way, turn that into HTML. And usually that is a wrong way to think about that set of problems.
Your design in the Photoshop phase, if you even work in Photoshop, which I don't always, depending on the client, but like, it's more of a guideline. It's like the pirate code.
Yeah.
It's not really a code per se, more as a guideline.
And Figma is less insane than XD in that regard. And so it would be unfortunate for Adobe to acquire that.
Because Adobe. Typically. I mean, I still use Photoshop for some stuff.
Yeah.
And some other programs. We use some of their suite, but...
Figma is less awful, for sure. And Adobe noticed that it's less awful. And rather than make their stuff better,
we'll acquire it. Yeah, the thing I would be terrified for Adobe to acquire would be Balsamic.
Yeah.
I love Balsamic for like, it's not high fidelity stuff. It's not pretty, but it's great for like wireframing and that kind of thing and sitemaps. And it works so well. It's got no crap in it.
Do you work at the company that makes Balsamic Engagement Challenge? Tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm 95% sure that the reason that Balsamic is using Comic Sans as their font still is Adobe acquisition armor.
Oh yeah, I don't think so. The default font for everything in that, I don't think it's Comic Sans, but it's something that's supposed to look handwritten. You can change it to Arial though, and I do because some clients respond very poorly
to Comic Sans.
To the Comic Sans looking font. Yeah.
No one on the Adobe team is like, oh, this uses Comic Sans by default. We will never acquire this.
Yeah.
Yes. That's deliberate.
But it works so well for documenting a project before you even start on all the other stuff.
Or just getting somebody to really, because like your brain is really good at being lazy and not telling you that you're being lazy. And it's like, no, I have a clearer picture in my mind of what the process will be for ABC XYZ. And it's like, great, let's write it down. And then,
let's actually sit here and do a workflow chart of it. And people are like, oh, I can see why this is confusing now, because as I sit and look at this workflow chart, everything is going like this. There's like 100 bubbles everywhere.
It's funny how those kind of things happen when somebody asks you to do something complicated.
Right. And sometimes you just have a complicated project and like, yeah. But there's always room to simplify. And
if you detect just a tiny bit of trauma in my voice, you would be correct. That is a correct perception.
Producing that kind of documentation is probably like one of my favorite parts of a project, though, at least complicated ones.
Yeah, well, it's also a little bit of validation, too, because when you tell somebody, it's like, this might not be the best tool for the job, and then they wig out, and then you see Adobe, it's like, yeah, Figma probably makes a lot of sense for people. It's like,
look, big company trying to acquire little company.
I was telling you that maybe there's some gaps in the functionality of that tool. And Adobe is like,
XD is awful.
To the tune of several $1 billion, we agree.
Do you think, so we were talking earlier about Microsoft was combining two programs it had. Maybe they'll try to combine XD and Figma into some unholy abomination.
Which will end badly.
Yeah.
See also Dreamweaver.
Oh, that's a blast from the past I don't want to think about.
Or Dreamweaver and Flash, and then they were like, oh, and then with Flash they did the ActionScript 3 thing, and then that was, hey, at least it wasn't as bad as Silverlight, or as bad as this.
Look, I never say this word out loud. Is it Lufthansa?
No, I think it's Lufthansa, is what Lufthansa? Ryan said based on The Sopranos.
Oh, okay. System failure causes massive travel chaos. This is in Germany. They also have a strike going on today, Friday.
Yeah, like the rail system, the actual workers said, this sucks and is terrible. You're going to have to spend some money here to make it less terrible.
Now, in this particular case, this was software related, but the strike is related to the worker conditions. So they're really kind of failing on all fronts.
Yeah. And the workers, the engineers, imagine the dude from Office Space like, see, I was telling them for years this wasn't going to work. And it caused a lot of disruption. So now that it's failed spectacularly, maybe the IT group can get the money that it needs to make it less terrible.
With each one of these headlines that pops up about an airline, you got to be getting nervous if you're working IT for any airline, because you're like, that means bad actors are going to be looking for us too. Yeah, you have to be hardening that, right?
Yeah, I've straight up literally stopped working for clients because it's like, well, you want me to work on this, but I don't have a budget. So pretty sure you just want me to be the fall guy for when this ends catastrophically. So I'm going to see you later. Bye. It's like, we want you to come in and be the janitor for all of our cast iron plumbing. And it's like, great. What's the roadmap for replacing this cast iron plumbing that should have been replaced 30 years ago?
We don't really have a roadmap. Also, we have a budget of $2. And it's like, well.
But you are responsible for making sure these pipes are flowing free and clear. And it's like, let me just get a camera here. Oh. I'm responsible, huh?
No, I'm not signing that contract.
Speaking of see ya, Netflix has been having a real hard time lately, and this can't help.
Netflix killed its surprise me button. Here's why the shuffle play feature never made much sense. I never really go to Netflix to just find something to watch. And the person in this article makes the point that it's because it's not structured like something like TikTok where you constantly find things, but I was like, I don't think I'd ever use a surprise me button.
I used it once when I was rewatching Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it was, here's an episode from season 1. Here's an episode from season 7.
It just found
here's an episode from season 2, and it's just like, this isn't useful. This is terrible.
Apparently they've had that in development for 10 years or something crazy. They were really sure that randomized content like that would work, but they could never get it to work right.
Yeah, it didn't work right. Maybe it could go cross show and I did something. I don't know. I did something wrong. Speaking of doing something wrong.
Hyundai. Why do I always say Hyundai? And Kia forced to update software on millions of vehicles because of viral TikTok challenge. We've done stories about this before.
We did a lot of stories about this, and we said, oh yeah, eventually they're going to update the software for free because all the attorneys general are going to be like, this is
Down
a
them,
defect.
yeah.
This is an obvious, this is like having a missing lug nut on your wheel level of defect. You will fix this. And they said, okay. But it took them a long time.
Yeah, we've started covering that, I feel like, last fall.
And so
The TikTok challenge around it.
the other reason we include stories like that is also as the counterpoint for the right to repair. Oh, the wheat thresher will start eating children if we let people repair their own cars. Meanwhile, that's the quality of software that is running the tractors and everything else. So don't be fooled.
It's not because they're high quality, it's just because they have money.
Speaking of that,
Google starts beta testing its rebrand of interest-based ad targeting on Android.
interest-based ad targeting is basically dead, at least in the EU and the Australia and everywhere else. It's dead ad technology
It's just
walking. If we continue on this
ads,
trajectory.
though. Like, just more ads on... Why?
Yeah.
Don't stop me from using your product so I can look at ads.
There are better ways. That it is a waste of time to monetize in that way because there are at this time proven better ways to monetize the user engagement in a way that is genuinely more useful to the user. And we should be doing that. And agencies should be supporting that with their dollar. Agencies and brands and by extension agencies should be supporting that type of work. We have the technology. Even small agencies can take advantage of that kind of a customer relationship. And instead, Google's like, no, we need to do the same old thing that we've done before, but more better. Again, Google's probably
more better, meaning we're just going to inject ads all over your phone.
Yeah, but it's really Google in the IBM phase where IBM was really obsessed with doing the same thing they've always done instead of innovating, as evidenced by each successive version of Android being worse than the last. They really need to just have a bunch of little units inside Google that are all kind of in startup mode doing really innovative things, and then survival of the fittest. It's like, well, your project didn't work out. You know, we want to keep you because you're awesome. So find something else to work on.
The Valve method.
Yeah. And that generally,
we had a story about Valve this week.
it mostly has worked for Valve, except when it doesn't.
Well, Valve, I feel like, is a little bit coasting on their laurels too. Just a little.
Yeah.
They are investing in some innovation though, with like all the VR stuff.
You know what else is an end of an era?
Microsoft will forcibly remove Internet Explorer from most Windows 10 PCs today. If I had a party hat and like a little...
Not to be confused with Edge. This is the legacy version of Internet Explorer, the old version. They're trying to dump it as much as they can. Now, this doesn't affect the business versions, and this doesn't affect the Windows Enterprise versions, because a lot of people may
I'll say government agencies in shambles.
Yeah, they depend on Internet Explorer for some of their internal sites still, which tells you just... but yeah, so... Ryan also included this one, which is sort of a fun lulz.
Microsoft confirms Game Pass cannibalizes sales.
Yeah, if you have Game Pass and you get free games, then guess what?
You're not going to buy those games.
Makes sense. But
Blizzard not happy about that.
You know, that's the headline, but when you read the rest of the article, it says that it does actually drive sales in some other ways, and it is dubious as to whether or not the overall bottom line is strongly negatively impacted.
Well, it's hard though, because a lot of modern games, as they get released, they start doing that, really aggressive monetization strategy. So it's like, you're still going to look like you're making a lot of money, but how much worse is that experience for the consumer?
Yeah, the article and the notes from the shareholder call also let slip, not in so many words, that the whole reason that they were doing this is to take away market share from launchers like Steam. And what they're finding is that it's not taking away the market share from Steam, but it is accelerating the adoption of their launcher. So you end up having Steam and their launcher. And maybe eventually in some mythological future, you could have both launchers installed, or you would, instead of having both launchers installed at the same time, you would just have the Steam launcher. But where we are right now is that, Steam can also launch a third-party launcher, which no one likes. And that is a psychological thing that should not be underestimated by these companies, because if you launch a launcher and it has to launch the Microsoft launcher when you launch Halo, for example, users are annoyed by that, and they don't
More
blame
time you're not spending playing the game.
They don't blame Valve, they blame Microsoft. So keep that in mind. Speaking of updates,
Valve is working on a major update for Team Fortress 2. It's going to come this summer. They said it's not summer themed, but they didn't really give a lot of other detail.
I read this and it made it sound like they were adding Fortnite style features. Because if you
Which is insane considering how old TF2 is.
yeah, if you played Fortnite and if you played TF2, there's actually a lot of stuff in TF2 that is like a much less polished version of some of the stuff that's in
Modern shooters,
yeah,
like
modern shooters
Overwatch,
of
Fortnite, yeah.
So adding more gestures and more communication stuff and that kind of thing seems like what is part of what this update is about, other than just maps and everything else. And also the whole seasons thing that Fortnite is doing. So Valve could have been like, oh, we could have kept the interest in the game longer by being like, oh, this is the end of this season. And this season we got this wacky change.
We changed the whole meta by just arbitrarily balancing everything.
Yeah. So
I can't decide if I love or hate that. I like it because it changes things up a little bit, but I also dislike it because it feels like it becomes another monetization update where it's like, look, new skins.
yeah.
But they don't actually make any real changes to the game.
And as someone who fields a lot of a few tech support emails on iQ and Razer Synapse software creating strange problems with the KVM because of the non-standard protocols they switch to when they communicate with the keyboard, I welcome this.
Windows 11 will soon control your RGB lighting for PC gaming accessories.
Yeah, there's a
That's
standard.
nice.
The standard's not insane. And if you implement the standard correctly, you can still use the HID protocol for keyboard shortcuts or keyboard control. Because once your keyboard's doing the IQ thing, it's not a HID keyboard anymore. Kind of sucks. But hey, there's BIOS mode. Fun times. Speaking of fun times,
Division 2 devs can't update the game because a delayed update broke the game updater.
we got to update the update.
That's very Inception-esque trying to read that headline. Oops.
Fun times. And this is also good news.
GitHub and EFF back YouTube Ripper in legal battle with the RIAA.
So this is, do you have the right, is it really circumventing copy protection if you consume footage streamed, or you consume media streamed to you that you had permission to stream, if you consume it in a different way other than they intended? So this is a really good case because the user is using assistive technologies in order to be able to consume the content a little differently than they had intended. And so this YouTube Ripper will let you rip something from YouTube that you have permission to watch, but then you could play it back and save it and do those other kind of things. And so it's like, did you have permission to record that? Now, to me, this is not really any different than the Home Taping Act. Do you as a user have permission to tape stuff off of the air? That was a Supreme Court case. And it turns out the answer is, yeah, you do. This is not a lot different, in my opinion. This should not be a lot different. We should codify this in law. But from a technological standpoint, we're so dysfunctional as a society that we can't just get there. But yes, you absolutely should have the right to do this. The RIAA is just constant. Like they want copyright maximalism to an extent that they will destroy society and step on your mother if it would further their position from a business standpoint. And they're just
not just step on your mother. I mean, they would just stomp her into the ground.
It is a level of evil that is very nearly incomprehensible. I mean, when you think of Lovecraft and Cthulhu, it doesn't even scratch the surface of how evil these organizations are and how they will do an end run around the intent and spirit of copyright and the sharing of culture in order to make money.
Well, at least like with Cthulhu, his motives are unknowable. This is just for money, right? That somehow makes it worse.
That is a good point. And so I really think that we need this. This could be the VHS home taping moment for our generation, and I hope it is okay. If it's not okay, we're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot.
This is another weird thing too. You're talking about the tech aspect of it, but like, this is why arts education is important because like, how else will you learn about certain things if you can't see it? Like,
I really need to be able to do home taping of Green Acres for Mom from YouTube. I really need that. That's a thing that I should be allowed to do that.
Imagine your mom trying to find that on YouTube.
Yeah.
Without you doing it.
Yeah. And it's like,
without you curating it.
You hit 1 for Green Acres, 2 for the Dick Van Dyke Show, 3 for Andy Griffith. She can manage that. It's fine. But otherwise she's in trouble. And you know who else is in trouble?
Skrelly tells judge his drug recovery software is not... Oh, discovery, sorry. Drug discovery software is not for discovering drugs.
Is he representing himself? He's got to be
his lawyer. Like his lawyer heard him say this and was just like...
Yeah, it's like drugfind.com or something like that. It's something
drug discovery, yeah. It's in the name.
And so he has a lifetime ban from working in the pharmaceutical and drug industry. And so the judge has brought him in to say, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, this isn't
drugs.
This has nothing to do with the pharmaceutical industry.
Totally different.
I have a feeling this is not going to go well for him.
I hope, if there's any justice in this world.
What's crazy though is that I don't think that, like, it is obvious from Shkreli's actions that he's a terrible human being, but I don't know that anything that he has done really has been illegal. If anything, what he has done is drawing attention to the types of things that really are fairly legal, mostly legal, completely legal in our system. And because of that, he is being punished, because other people can act as amorally behind closed doors with impunity. And because he does it so boldly, he is punished. And so that's Could
you argue that's the same thing with like Wall Street bets?
Yeah. Like the naked shorting. Naked shorting is absolutely happening to the point that it seems like it's fraud. And I am shocked that no one seems to be capable of investigating it, because everything has been allowed to grow to the point that it's too big to fail. So, whereas this is one individual that is...
We'll make an example of this person.
Yeah, that is just as amoral as, say, GlaxoSmithKline, as we'll see later. But they're very different standards of punishment, it seems. Speaking of very different standards...
Amazon plans to eventually go big on physical grocery stores, because that worked out so well when they acquired Whole Foods.
Well, I want you should read the article and all this kind of stuff, but I want you to keep this article in mind when we get to the nonsense section on Friday, because we're going to talk about how grocery companies are hemorrhaging customer data and how they're using their cameras and that sort of thing to track little things that you're doing inside the store to glean analytics info from that. And your customer loyalty card is more information than just purchases. It's probably a little more than you realize. And so imagine also our future. You know, we always joke about eating insects and that sort of thing. So imagine a little tiny bit farther in the future where we're under a little bit more economic pressure. You make food, you have a little bit of waste. There's leftovers. You know, eggs go bad. You got 3 leftover eggs. What can you make with eggs? It doesn't really work. There are apps to kind of figure it out, whatever. What if Amazon was doing your meal planning for you, and it says, okay, we're going to have lasagna on Monday and spaghetti on Tuesday and hamburgers on Wednesday and tacos on Thursday or tacos on Tuesday. I don't know, that's whatever. But you do your meal planning and Amazon figures it all out, and it's like, here's the ingredients you're going to order. Here's how you're going to use this. It's going to be great. And it's much more efficient. So naturally you save money. And the meals are actually pretty good and pretty tasty. You're not really paying attention a ton to the nutrition labels. Like Amazon's giving you totals and Amazon's giving you some data on the nutrition stuff. But genuinely, it really does help you lower costs and have better meals and do better meal prep and do all this other kind of stuff. I think that's where we're going with this. And people will find it innovative and satisfying and awesome. Now the darkness comes in.
I was about to say, I know I know where you're going, I think, with this, but
the darkness comes in when Amazon says, I can save you $25 a month or $100 a month. Let me substitute product X. And so you mix a little bit of cricket meat in with your hamburger, or a little bit of cricket meat in with your ragu and your spaghetti sauce, or a little bit of cricket meat in with, whatever it is.
Or a certain brand has paid this month to be on your grocery list.
Yeah, exactly. They're helping subsidize your grocery list because they really want you to try this other laundry detergent over your regular.
And I know you have eczema, but I don't really care.
Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting, and there's going to be a lot of consumers that find value. It's like, okay, look, Downey is willing to, GlaxoSmithKline or Unilever is willing to pay me to try their product effectively, because their product is going to be $5 off for this 1 month, and then next month, it's like
it goes up.
Yeah, it's like, hey, did you like that product? It's, yeah, I did. It's like, well, I can't give you $5 off this month, but I can give you $1 off this month. And when you're doing that level of analysis and that level of control, and you have companies the size and scale of Unilever that own everything, and they have that much data on you, the price overall is not going to go up. What you get is going to go down, and the quality of what you get is going to go down, and the price is going to go up.
Also, here's another layer of it that I was thinking about was Amazon's also pushing into the healthcare industry. So imagine a scenario where you go to your doctor and the doctor's like, we really need you to switch to a certain diet because otherwise your insurance will lapse. And then the Amazon grocery side is like, we're not going to let you buy these sweets and other snacks you like anymore because your Amazon doctor says you can't have them.
you scan the box of donuts and you get a text message on your watch.
Your Amazon watch, yeah.
Yeah, your Amazon watch is like, oh, your health insurance will be canceled if you eat these donuts.
If you buy one more thing of Oreos,
yeah.
your insurance premiums go up $600.
Yeah, I mean, we joke about this.
It's not happening right now, but I mean, is that far-fetched in this world?
On the scale of a decade, come on, it's totally going to happen. Speaking of things that, if you're serious about making some changes.
Serious about your crypto project? Binance's CEO says you should just move.
Yeah,
just go overseas.
Things are a little hostile in Washington, D.C. The SEC is out for blood, as we learned earlier in the program with the government section. But, it's not amazing. And Axios states the obvious.
Podcasts lose their edge. Oh, that's our program. Well, I guess we're technically on video too, but a lot of people consume it as a podcast.
Yeah, and it's not. We really should do a better job with distribution, but we love you all. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for coming to Patreon or Floatplane or YouTube or wherever you get this thing, or YouTube DL or whatever you're doing to do this. Thank you very much. Imagine putting more work into this than we do and only getting like 20 or 30 views on your podcast. That's like 99% of podcasts.
Well, and I wonder too, so like we had that story about the cops last episode where the cops spent $300,000 just getting a podcast set up. And I'm like, how much are people, I mean, like I said, this is not a cheap setup, what we've gotten here. I mean, there are components of it that are cheap, but like, even so, like even the nice mics, the soundboard, all this, like that still wasn't $300,000 expensive. No. Nowhere near.
Well, I know of an obscure out of the way place where Samsung spent $500,000 on probably about 15 or 20 podcasts total in half a dozen languages. And it was just, we got millions of views on this podcast, but it was just their agency botting it. And it was so controlled and it was so
corporate
milquetoast that it was just, no one cared. And that's really the thing of it is like when you watch with us, it's like, oh, we're covering news stories, whatever. But you feel our suffering and you sort of live through our experiences and the fun stuff that we share over the 30 minutes to an hour that we usually ramble on. So yeah, I don't know. That's a big part of it.
Like too with podcasts, they mentioned that they still think podcasts are good, even though like generally they're going down. They said the issue is that there's so many people who started them and then they had like 1 or 2 episodes and then they quit. And they said that data was part of this as well, which is part of why it looked worse than it really was, maybe.
Speaking of things that look pretty bad.
PayPal causes stablecoin work amid regulatory scrutiny of crypto. Bloomberg News. Oh, pauses.
PayPal is not doing anything with crypto now. It seems. Well, okay, not doing anything. That's not accurate, but they're not doing any kind of stable work, crossover, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they've got friends inside the SEC that are saying, shh, don't do that. Speaking of...
YouTube CEO Susan, I never learned how to pronounce her name, says she's stepping down. That's Polish nonsense, I don't think.
She's stepping down, and I think that, she said that she agreed with Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai to take on an advisory role across Google and Alphabet. So...
Failing upward.
The feeling among my creator brethren is that this is probably not going to be amazing for creators.
YouTube... I was talking to some other people about this too, but like YouTube, even as like a viewer side, is not great anymore because their search has gotten so polluted. Yeah. Like you look something up and half of it's like other things that people are looking up that are not even related to Shorts. The topic. Not even shorts, but have you like halfway through the search results, it's like, here's 3 other videos of something else. Or something else you've already watched. And it's like,
YouTube, can you tell me the IOMMU groups on this X570 motherboard? Would you like to watch some shorts about muffins being made? No.
What about people dancing? Fish tanks? I don't know what you like.
You haven't clicked on anything in 5 minutes. How about some more?
Why don't you watch this video you've already watched? Stop doing that.
Oh, no.
But it'll probably it'll get worse probably.
Yeah. Maybe people at work are driving the bad augmentations to the algorithm. I don't know. Because people doing bad things at work maybe drove this.
Ransomware gang uses new 0-day to steal data on 1 million patients.
Klopp claims that it mass hacked 130 organizations, including a U.S. hospital network.
I think there were 80 hospitals in that network.
They're after my tick data.
Oh. I think one of them mentioned it was in Tennessee. I wonder if any from Kentucky got hit.
Yeah, those hospital networks, man. They are not spending enough money on their technology, I can tell you that. I see that Windows XP logo bouncing around the MRI machine.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, do we get our liquid helium for this thing on eBay? What's going on? I don't understand.
Just get in the tube.
Yeah.
Don't think about it.
Even the city of Oakland is on the struggle bus.
City of Oakland declares state of emergency after ransomware attack. They're not the first city to have to do that either. There was another one mentioned in this article in Louisiana that had to do the same thing.
Yeah, it turns out most state and local governments are so paranoid about breaking something that they never do updates or anything. And, there was a federal mandate that they were supposed to get rid of like Hikvision and Huawei and the Hua cameras and stuff. And most of them aren't even compliant with that. So, ugh.
I always like to say Hikvision. I think that's funnier.
Hikvision.
Yeah, I actually don't know which one's right, but
it's their official rep. So I met one of the guys, I think it was in 2016 or 2017 at Computex, and their English was pretty good, and they were pronouncing it as High K Vision.
Oh, that makes more sense. But you should, every time, if you ever meet that guy again, like if you see him at Computex, you should say Hikvision.
But I've also...
in your best Eastern Kentucky accent.
I've also seen other people, I don't know. It's fun times.
Hikvision.
French fried potatoes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so security, not great this week. We wandered into the security section in case you were curious.
Latest attack on PyPy users show crooks are only getting better.
PyPy is just like the bazaar of Python libraries and extensions and things. It's like, I need a library to do this kind of linear algebra. And you use PyPy to install that. And some of the packages aren't really being paid attention to. And some of it is typo squatting. And it's like, oops, that's bad, because it's going to try to steal your Amazon keys, or it's going to try to steal your SSH keys. It's going to try to steal common things that your user has access to. Sort of bad.
Not good.
Not great. Also, if you use Namecheap, got some bad news.
You might have to read this one because I can't see it very well.
Namecheap's email hacked to send MetaMask DHL phishing emails.
Such a tiny head, so small.
It would have been smarter of the scammers to use Namecheap's email to send Namecheap phishing emails to get domain names. But, okay. Sounds good. Phishing DHL emails from Namecheap? Kind of makes sense. And also this one's scary. A researcher tried to buy mental health data. It was surprisingly easy. The person in the article quickly points out, they're like, we didn't actually buy it, but it was trivial to get to it. They should have bought it. It would have been fine. Although then the feds probably would have showed up and said, you should have known you're not supposed to buy it. You're not supposed
to do it, but I mean, it's for sale.
But these people sold it and nothing is going to happen to them. Yeah, this is being your Amazon. What is it?
Your Amazon health profile.
Whole Foods, basically. Yeah. Your Amazon Whole Foods profile includes your mental health data.
You're gonna get ads for like supplements that deal with anxiety.
It's like, oh, Susan, I don't know if you should be buying cashews because that has a weird interaction with this medicine you're taking, and it's like, thanks.
I wouldn't even tell you that.
Thanks, Amazon.
And then you try to buy it. It's like, no, you won't buy that.
It's like boop, boop, boop.
Amazon guards have been dispatched to your location. You will not buy the cashews. Oh no, that's Ryan. Because Ryan has the stones. He won't be allowed to buy nuts.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. And this is a Tom's Hardware article about a YouTube channel called the PC Security Channel. So you should go subscribe to the PC Security Channel, which I've noticed comment on our videos from time to time when we do stuff like this. I did a video on the on the Windows 11 start menu in over a year ago. And about all this kind of nonsense that it does. And so this is a lot of fun to see other art. It's like, oh, mainstream normie content. I should work on making my content more accessible. I don't know.
It's difficult. Windows 11 sends tremendous amount of user data to third parties, YouTuber claims.
This is a really clever, straightforward way of doing what I should have done, which is just you install Windows on a computer that is connected to another computer that's monitoring what it does on the internet. And you install Windows 11 and you get to a prompt and then you look at what it did on the internet. And it was a crazy amount of stuff. Now, when you dig into it, you're going to find that some of the crazy stuff, because like one of the websites that Windows 11 sent a lot of data to was the fresh install of Windows 11 was scorecardresearch.com, which is like the agency standby, market research, blah, blah, blah firm. But some of this is because Windows refuses to not install garbage like Candy Crush and all that nonsense. When you click on the start menu and it's like, oh, there's a bunch of games on here. So when those games install, their installer runs and they're part of Windows. And so on first boot up, some of the telemetry and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, it's bundled with Windows, but not a lot, but some of that data is going to be from those third-party applications. And of course, the answer from Microsoft, they're like, oh, we're always trying to be more transparent with what's going on and blah, blah, blah.
Not really.
No. When you install Windows, you got all those things where you can toggle off. And one of the toggles is you're going to get ads. Do you want targeted ads or non-targeted ads? And if you tell it non-targeted ads, it's like, oh, this is not going to change the number of ads that you see. They're just not going to be as targeted. But when you look at what third-party software bundled with Windows is actually doing, it is extremely insidious, as the PC Security Channel found and Tom's Hardware commented on. And so, we can go even deeper here. We can do this in a virtual machine and really analyze the actual binaries that are running and see what's making the network calls. And you'll be surprised how much of it has nothing to do with Windows, but just poor decisions that some middle manager made in order to juice their analytics numbers, which is the integrity rot that has occurred with the Windows Start menu. It's really just shocking and depressing. Speaking of shocking and depressing,
Google's Go may add telemetry that's on by default.
Some devs object because they don't trust Mountain View. I wonder why. It's
not like we're all being aggressively monetized and advertised to at all hours of the day.
Some of this is not about monetization necessarily, but about getting more telemetry about how people are using Google's programming language Go and the libraries and knowing where to spend money. So this is a little different, but at the same time, it's like, people are right to be sensitive to this kind of thing.
So they can know what features to put behind a paywall.
Yeah, if we don't do this, before you know it, Candy Crush and TikTok are sending all individual keystroke data. Because think about how vanishingly small the information is. If your computer is real time every 5 seconds, sending every keystroke that you touch and every way that you move your mouse, that is a vanishingly small amount of information. The collected works of Shakespeare, which he spent a lifetime writing, is less than 1 megabyte, or around 1 megabyte, 1 million characters. You can send that in fractions of a tenth of a second on modern internet connections. So sending literally everything that you do is almost unnoticeable.
I don't like that.
Fun times. Anyway, we got a lot of nonsense lined up for Friday.
Yeah. So I don't like to read the nonsense stories very much. I'll check out a couple of them, but most of the time I don't read them beforehand because I like to react with the audience. So that'll be fun. Anyway, we'll see you guys. Bye.